Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is another week in review, although for me, this one is being filmed even earlier than usual. This is the last of the out-of-order things going on because of, well, holidays and all that. My schedule, for context, my schedule for the week, this is being filmed Monday, which is ridiculous for something that's supposed to be like a review of the week, a recap, let's talk about the comments, oh, and you like that video, and someone said this on that video, let's have a conversation. Which is harder to do when it's even more one-sided than usual because of how early I'm filming this. But for context, the reason I'm filming it this early is because tomorrow and Wednesday are going to be the last of the holidays of Sukkot, Jewish holiday of Sukkot, which has been last week, this week, before that we had Rosh Hashanah, before that we had Yom Kippur. It's been a crazy month, basically. And then after that, directly from Wednesday and Thursday, we then go directly from Tuesday, Wednesday, being holidays, we go into Thursday, Friday being Origins, which I will be at, which means I'm basically, and then we go into Saturday, which I'm offline for that. And then I'm probably at Origins again on Sunday. We'll see. I'm not yet sure about that, which means basically for the next 5 days, I'm offline for the most part. Some directly offline for holidays and Shabbat, and then some partially offline for being at Origins, which means I'm trying to get all my videos done nice and early, which means that I've filmed everything for the week already. I still need to edit and timestamp a bunch of stuff, and this thing going up Saturday, well, today's kind of the last chance I have to do it, unless I want to be up really, really early Thursday morning. Anyways, that's my schedule. But yeah, so things are going to be a bit out of order. That said, this is game news and week in review. Timestamps down below to everything. Let's go ahead and jump into it. But first, as usual, coffee. Still in the morning. Technically, I could have waited till the afternoon to film this, but, well, I can't for other reasons. I have a wild quackalope trying to use my studio for the whole afternoon, and so I need to make sure things are done early in the morning. It's a mess. It's all going to be fun. It's all going to be fine. And the good news is with all the holidays is offline time means more game time. So I get to have more games on the table, which we'll talk about as usual at the end of this video. But either way, let's start off with a bunch of game news, and it's kind of mixed up in terms of Kickstarter and non-Kickstarter this time around. We just have a few updates or new releases announced. We have Llama Land from Phil Walker Harding. Now, don't get too excited necessarily. I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. It does seem to be branding itself as a family weight game, very tile placement with stacking tiles on top of one another's with little llamas. So Phil Walker Harding has some great designs. They all tend to lean a little on the lighter side. I should say most. I don't know if it's all, but either way, that range of lightness does vary from Sushi Go to Baron Park to a bunch of other games that aren't immediate. Gingerbread House, which Gingerbread House actually kind of looks a bit like Llama Land now that I think about it, but a bunch of other designs. Either way, so that's one to be aware of. I generally like Phil Walker Harding's designs. Don't always keep all of them, but I do generally like them. Then from there we have Batman Season 3. Monolith has started teasing pictures of Batman Season 3. If you follow, you have the Batman game, which has a longer title that I'm not remembering offhand. Batman Escape from Arkham Asylum, is that what it is? I don't remember what the title is. Either way, the full Batman game from Monolith, they had Season 1, which was the big giant box everyone was excited about, and then they had Season 2, and things were very expensive, and the per miniature price was going up and up and up, and I got less excited, and then they have Season 3, and I haven't even looked at the prices. I'm sure for those who like the game and want more, it's awesome. Generally, I'm excited when Kickstarter campaigns have more content for games that I want, even if I have way too much content anyways. But yeah, that's going to be Batman Season 3 from Monolith. Then we have Glory Islands. Glory Islands is going to be a new game from Rio Grande that they announced. I don't know much about the gameplay. Cover looks cool. That's enough to get my interest already. We have Game Brewer announcing that they are going to be reprinting the Palaces of Carrara. That is a game that is hard to find. That's a game, so Board Game Co., the retail operations side of things, every time we get in a copy of the Palaces of Carrara, which is not frequently, it gets snatched up like that. Because we deal with used games, we often get out-of-print games. The Palaces of Carrara is always, I'll get in a copy, and the next day I'll get 15 trade requests for it. It gets snatched up. It is a hard-to-find game. So if you have a copy, and you're not currently playing it anyway, sell it now while you still can. You'll get more money for it. But yeah, seriously, no, in all seriousness, go ahead and sell your copy. Think of games like Bruges when they get a reprint, or anytime a popular, hard-to-find, expensive out-of-print game gets a reprint, things get less expensive. That's why you saw people selling their Battlestar Galacticas because of the new game coming up from Fantasy Flight. Although even there, you're a little safer because the new game is not Battlestar Galactica. It's the same gameplay mechanics, but not the same theme. Either way, Palaces of Carrara, you can go ahead and, well, if you've been hunting it down, great, awesome. You can now get it from Game Brewer, or not now, but soon. And if you have a copy, it might be time to look into selling it. We have a new Dominion expansion, Allies, bringing the total Dominion expansions to 14 expansions to date. I haven't bothered picking up the last few. I probably should. The completionist side of me definitely wants to. I need to get one of those nice Michaels cases that people use to sort their Dominion cards, because it's going to outgrow my current storage solution. But yeah, I probably should pick up more Dominion stuff. I mean, I don't need to, but what's an extra 3 expansions once you have the first 11, which is, I think I have the first 11. I have Adventures. Was Adventures the last one I have? Or maybe the one after that? Empires. I have Adventures and Empires. I think those are the last ones I have. Either way, Dominion. Remember when Dominion said they're going to stop printing Dominion expansions? They're like, this is the last one. We are done. It's over. Hey, people keep buying these, you know? People keep... Mark, I know he said it's over, but people keep buying this. Do you like money, Mark? Because I like money. Do you like money? That's basically what it feels like. Now, I'm not complaining, by the way. I think if people want stuff and they keep buying it, I think there's nothing wrong with a company continuously putting the thing out. It's always the same TV show problem. Do you keep going with a TV show until the audience has completely lost interest? Like, do you end on a high note, or do you, like, which way do you go? You could end on a high note. You could say, hey, people keep watching, let's stop now. Or you could slowly fizzle out. And I don't know what makes more sense. I mean, it's a weird conversation, really. Like, could Dominion just cut off the flow and say no more Dominion and it's done? Or keep printing it? Who cares? People are buying it. It's an interesting conversation. Either way, I mean, I'm sitting here 3 expansions short and talking about picking them all up now. So basically their new reprint has announced, not reprint, their new expansion has kind of might have triggered me to pick up 3 expansions, which is messed up. Anyways, that's going to be Dominion. Dominion Allies. Cover looks cool, by the way. I like the cover of it. Next up, we have Warpgate. Basically, Warpgate's a game is actually on my shelf. I talked about it like 2 weeks ago. I wanted to get it to the table. I didn't get it to the table. I still hope to. I have rules all read. I'm prepped to go. Looks pretty cool. They have a cool action system in Warpgate, where what you do is you place down your cards 1, 2, 3, 4, and each action gets stronger. So just to give you some basic idea, you could move, but if I move in the first turn, I'll only have like a distance of 1. If I move in the 4th turn, I'll have a distance of 4, or maybe I'll move more ships. So it's like you have a hand of cards, but the way you play out those hands of cards is going to determine the relative strength of the actions you take. It's a very interesting system, a little bit of a Galaxy 4X-ish kind of game. I don't know if it's full 4X, but either way, game looks cool. They have an expansion coming to Gamefound, apparently, which I'm surprised didn't make its way into, Gamefound had a recent, update of upcoming games and all that. I didn't see Beyond in that list, which I'm surprised by, but I happened to be scrolling through all the Gamefound titles, because I'm planning on doing at some point, not right now. I plan on doing a comparison video of Gamefound and Kickstarter. We'll talk about it more, but I was scrolling through various things on Gamefound just to find more stuff to compare, and I saw Warpgate Beyond. In fact, now that I think about it, maybe I'll compare that. Maybe I'll wait till, I don't know when it launches. I don't know when it launches. Either way, I'm getting sidetracked. Warpgate Beyond. If you like Warpgate and you're excited for more content for the game, that's going to be upcoming on Gamefound. And then lastly, well, not really lastly, that's going to be covering us for board game news. But if you want more news, a separate thing entirely, not new releases, is Ravensburger announced that they are halting orders, possibly until 2022. I'm not entirely sure for how long. Basically, we've talked about this multiple times in the past, but there is a freight crisis. There's a supply line crisis going on. In terms of crisis, might be a strong word. There's a shortage. There's a degree of escalating costs of factories in China are having like rolling blackouts and halting productions, whatever. There's a whole bunch of issues that are affecting the price of your games that you may or may not have noticed yet. But if you haven't noticed yet, you will be noticing. But in short, in addition to the price of games, you're also affecting the supply line. And Ravensburger said, hey, we appreciate all the orders, but we don't want to take orders that we can't guarantee fulfillment on. So we're currently halting orders. We'll be back. We'll be back. Soon you'll see with all the games that you and me can play now that they're here. It's hard to believe we've waited a year. It sort of worked. Either way, point is that Ravensburger is halting orders on their games. I like Hamilton. Hamilton's a good musical. Anyways, that is going to be that, which brings us to the topic of the week. And yes, last week's video, I completely forgot a topic of the week. Again, this whole holiday thing has me completely off my game. If you haven't noticed it already, I've had videos in the past like 2 weeks, not a ton, but I've had a video missing a description. I've had last week's Week in Review was missing, or maybe it's 2 weeks ago. I think it's 2 weeks ago, Week in Review was missing links. I had to add the links after. So I added the links like a day late because I ran into Shabbat, like the links weren't done in time, and it is what it is. The video scheduled, good to go. Last week's Week in Review had the wrong thumbnail. I just grabbed an old thumbnail. I had no time, and then I corrected it 2 or 3 days later. What else have I had? I've had issues. I had my in terms of my Patreon updates, last week's Patreon updates, I usually put them up every Monday. I have a Patreon exclusive video that goes up every single Monday, as well as a schedule for the week, and both of those I completely forgot to do. I've just been slammed because of the holiday situation, and including last week's video, I didn't have a topic of the week. Again, it's just a symptom of actually being overworked. Turns out I do have a breaking point, and that breaking point is giving me 2 days of a week to actually get everything done. So either way, that's that. I'm going to take a sip of coffee to calm down. Either way, topic of the week is going to be grumpy gaming. Grumpy gaming. What does that mean? So, I recently had a situation. It's not the first time I've had a situation. It's just whenever I'm thinking of these topic of the weeks, I'm thinking of something that I want to talk about. That's small, it's interesting, it's not a full video, it's just relevant, whatever it is. And yeah, grumpy gaming. So, recently I was playing a game with somebody who didn't seem to want to be there. Like, once the game started, it seemed like they had the idea of, like, it seemed like they did not want to be there. Their facial expressions, their interest level seemed to be just, like, very flat the whole time. And this is somebody who's not normally flat when they play games. But they're flat the entire time, and they're playing cards, and they're taking a strategy in this game as well of trying to rush the end game, which might even work. I don't even know, but it didn't seem like it should work. So either way, it was the strategy was rush the end game. The face was very flat. The interest level was very null. And they just didn't seem to want to be there doing the game. And that definitely marred, I'm not going to say ruined, but that definitely marred the experience for myself and the other person playing the game at the same time. So we had two people who were trying to enjoy the game, but playing next to somebody who didn't want to be there. And then we had a person who seemed to not want to be there. Now, I always see these conversations and questions, and I have no direction I want to go with this. I just I'll start talking and figure it out. But I've always seen these various posts about different things. How do you deal with game group drama? And game group drama ranges. There's multiple questions that exist. There's how do I deal with someone who's cheating? Like, if someone's cheating in a game, what do I do? And usually 90% of the responses are stop playing with that person. That's my instinctive response too. Although, if you're my friend, then you get one warning. That's the way I go with it. If you're my friend, if you're not my friend, I don't care. You're done. Get out of here. Like, I'm not playing with someone who's a cheater. If you're my friend, there's a balance at play, and so it's like, well, and I did have this happen, sort of, by the way. I was playing a game with a friend one time, and I caught him cheating. And I was like, wow. And then I saw him cheating again. I didn't say anything, because I was going to say something to him after the game. But he kept on sneaking these gems, and I was like, the first time I was like, that's pretty bad. Second time I was like, paid a bit more attention, and he did it again. I was like, this is messed up. I've been playing games with the guy for 4 years, and apparently I'm catching him cheating. Then he did it again, and I was like, do you have a card that lets you cheat? And we were playing Dragon's Gold, which is a game that has a card that lets you cheat and sneak gems until someone catches you. I had caught him 3 turns earlier. I was being nice and not saying anything because I wanted to, like, talk to him and confront him after the game in front of other people. It was obnoxious. But either way, that was a good example. I was like, sitting there, like, I was horrified that for the past 4 years I was playing a game with somebody who was just taking chips and cheating. It's like, it was mind-blowing to me. Either way. But the point is, in such a situation, I'd give you one warning. Now, I'm getting sidetracked from my initial topic of conversation of grumpy gaming, but I think it's relevant aspect of how do we deal with different types of issues with our game groups. So cheating for me is no warning if you're not my friend, one warning if you are my friend. That seems like a simple enough way to go. Let's say I did a video a long time ago. One of my first videos on the channel was a video about analysis paralysis, and I talked about how when I have people who are analysis paralysis, and I have one particular person in mind who I'm thinking of in my game group who's very, very slow, what I've done is I have told him, I've said, hey, by the way, just a heads up, you are slower. You take twice as long as the next slowest player. Like, we have a turn timer we sometimes use, usually when he's there. He takes twice as long as the next slowest player, and I've said, as a result, I am happy to have you included because I don't want you left out. But at the same time, when you are included, you are bringing down the experience a bit for everyone else because you're taking much more time and slowing down the whole process. So I've basically told him, I'm like, you are welcome to come to game night, but it's going to be not as frequent, and it's going to be not whenever we have a heavy thinking game. Until and unless you improve that aspect of the AP. It's a weird balance. You don't want to punish somebody for just being a slower thinker, but also usually slower thinkers are usually just more obsessed with their turns and perfection, and they need to get that out of their system because it's bringing down the experience for others. So my balance is I keep them included, but I also like limit how often they are included or which games or stuff like that as a balance there. Back to grumpy gaming. What do you do with a grumpy gaming? Now, for context, this isn't really a problem because in this situation, we're talking about a person who's generally a very happy, upbeat person when they're playing. And sure, one game they were a little grumpy. It's not a big deal, but it's just an interesting conversation. And so in our case, what we did is, and this isn't the first time they've done it, this is like the second, maybe third time they've done it. And so I just spoke to them and I said, hey, like, as a heads up, like, just if you could be mindful, like, speaking for myself, I'd rather you bow out of a game. If you're somebody who's not enjoying the experience to the point that you will let it affect your presence at the table, I'd rather you bow out. I'd rather you say, hey, this game's not for me. Do you mind if I just stop playing? And it's a weird balance because nobody wants to be that person. And speaking to this person, they didn't want to be that person. They're like, I don't want to do that. But like, I don't want to be the person who's quitting on the game. I was like, that's fine. I get that you're trying to be mindful of what we want, but you're not doing what we want. You're doing the opposite of what we want. We want you to bow out. So don't not bow out of consideration for us. We'd rather quit and just play the two of us or play a different game entirely with you included. That's fine. All those options are fine. But yeah, so we talked it out. I think we're fine for the future. I think, who knows? And for context, I'm not perfect at this either. My balance, because I've played games. I have played games where I did not want to be there. And it is different. I do treat it differently depending on the situation, but my most common approach to not wanting to be there for a game is either I have sometimes bowed out. If a game is bad enough that's genuinely, I'm like, if it's a long game and I have no interest, I'll be like, hey, I really am not enjoying this. Do you mind if I step back? The second thing I do, the alternative I do, is, and this is usually when it's not that grumpy, but like it's a little grumpy, is I'm like funnily grumpy. Like I try to go for like intentional, like, oh my gosh, like, okay, fine, I'm just gonna play another card. Like I try to make a big deal about how much I'm not enjoying and try to make it entertaining to a degree. Meaning I acknowledge and I own the fact that I'm not enjoying the game as much as I otherwise would like to. But at the same time, it's easy enough to be funny about it for me because just hanging out with people I like and playing games is often fun. So I'm curious what you do about people in your game group who are, and this could be applied, like there's so many applications of this conversation. What do you do with sore losers or sore winners? And again, same basic problem. My response to all these things, there are some things that there's just very little tolerance for, like cheating. There's either no or little tolerance. Most things, it's about the conversation. It's about, I'm going to let you know how your actions are affecting us playing games, and you have to make a decision about how you're going to deal with that. I don't think I would ever permanently exclude anyone for their actions, but I might limit their interactions. If you're someone who's a sore loser when you play games, I might say, hey, we're going to try to play cooperative games more when you're here, but I don't like cooperative games. I hear you, but when you play competitive games, we don't like how you act. So we're going to focus more on cooperative games when you're around. Like I'd have that conversation. I don't want to exclude you, but I'm happy to set the terms around how you interact with our game group if you are causing issues, so to speak. Again, by the way, to be very clear, I'm making a big deal out of something that's not a big deal because I just thought it was a good topic of conversation. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably worth doing a full video on different types of issues and different ways to approach the conversation in a game group. Game groups are fascinating balances, and in my case, they're usually not a big deal because in my case, it's usually dealing with my friends. But not all gaming is with your friends. Very often gaming is with meetups or that guy that Bob brought. Like there's a lot. What's with Bob? Bob's back again. But either way, there's a lot of interesting social dynamics at play. I generally think direct communication is usually the best response, but sometimes it isn't at the same time. So yeah, that's basically just my random 2 cents of the week. A bit of a topic about grumpy gaming, communication, correspondence, and people who I like and stuff. It's just that. But either way, back to coffee, and then we'll go through the week in review. So, week in review. We have what I played, and we have the week in review. Let's go through this. We have, I did log my games. I'm slowly catching up on all my logs. I'm trying to get this back caught up as possible. Now, my week in review is going to be slightly shorter than usual because, like I said already, it's Monday, so the stuff I would usually play Monday through Thursday is not in this video. I'll talk about it next video. We'll go back, further than usual. What I do have is, what do I have here? We have from Friday. Friday's probably where I want to be picking up from. Okay, cool. So let's go with what I have here. I still have a decent amount of games, honestly. I still have like 10 plus plays. Oh, that's plenty. I got plenty to talk about. Okay, cool. I got a play of Luna Capital in. Luna Capital is a new hit from Gen Con that I'll have opinions on the game. Overall, I will say I enjoyed it, but I do have opinions and critiques and issues with it. But it feels like it's a flat out game. It feels like it fits perfectly in the lineup of Cascadia, Calico, and Verdant, although not graphically, but just the gameplay approach of picking a card and picking a group set of tiles in it. Very fun, very thinky game. Again, mostly positive opinion of it with a bunch of critiques and complaints. I don't know when I'll have a review on it because it wasn't my copy, but I plan on getting a copy, so we'll see how that goes. I got to play in of Equinox. Equinox is going to be the Reina Knizia's game. Wasn't so much for me. I don't know if I'm going to bother picking it up for a review. It's not my copy, so you won't see much more coverage on it. But basically, Jesse and Shira came back from Gen Con with a bunch of new games, which we tried tabling a bunch of them. So Equinox it was okay. I mean, I think it was fine. I enjoyed my play of it. I'm not looking to play it again. It's a bit of a kind of a racing mechanic. It feels like racing, but what you're doing is you start off with a bunch of animals or creatures, whatever it is, and then each round, one is eliminated, and when you have the final 3, then you score points for whoever invested in those 3. It's fine. It runs a little long for the experience I'm getting, and I don't activate the creatures and their powers and abilities as much as I would like to, so it's kind of a, hey, I'm happy to play it. Not looking for it, though, past that. We have Land vs. Sea. This one I will have coverage on because this is from Funfair Games, who I've worked for, not Funfair. This is from the same publisher as Funfair, from Good Games Publishing, I believe they're called. They've sent me games in the past, so they sent me a copy from Gen Con for Land vs. Sea. Really solid. Really solid. I will have coverage on it, but it's basically a 2 to 4 player game. Well, I'll talk about it more. Really solid game. We will talk about it more on the channel. We got to play I got to play in Vagrant Song. Vagrant Song is another Gen Con release. I actually played this one on TTS with the publisher directly, and I will have coverage more of the game as well. I'll be picking up a copy at Origins when I'm there from the publisher. But Vagrant Song is, more games. It's another game that has the art style of Townsfolk Tussful, of Cuphead, and it is a boss battler, sort of. It's a little adjacent, very thematic, very story-driven, lots of interesting characters. Very interesting game. I need to dive into it more. I'll have more of an opinion as I continue playing it. I have a play of Opusin, which is an upcoming Kickstarter, prototype, whatever. Got in a play of Corral. Corral is going to be a game from Funtails, who brought you Funtails brought you Feed the Kraken and Glenmore. And their Corral is going to be the newest upcoming Kickstarter. It is a family weight game. It's from the publisher, it's from the designer of Carcassonne. It's a family weight game that starts off family weight, and then there's like 7 modules you can add in to mix and match the difficulty. I've only played the family weight side of things. I need to dive in with the modules now so I can get an experience of the 2 ranges. The family weight game is fine as a family weight game. I would not choose to own it personally as a family weight game. It's a little lighter than the kind of things I'm looking for, but I am curious how it plays out with the rest of the modules added. It's a totally fine game, to be clear, but I need to see how it goes with the modules to go from there. We have Pachamama. Oh my gosh, Pachamama's over here. This one was a surprise hit for me. This Pachamama is a solid game. If you watched my video on upcoming Kickstarters on Friday, then you already saw that I very much like Pachamama. It's a deduction game. I'll talk about it more at the end of this video. The fact that it's on the table again after I already got 2 plays of it, I want to jump back into it. Quacks of Quedlinburg. I got another play of Quacks of Quedlinburg with Rena and Ricky. This is the first time I'm playing with the Herb Witches expansion. I like it. It didn't feel essential, but it's more extra nice stuff. Plus, more importantly, the Herb Witches expansion gives you more tiles and more combos with the various types, so there's more variability from that side. So we got in a play of that. I got in a play of No Thanks. No Thanks, which is something, small little game I don't often play, but Jesse, Sharon, and I had like 5 minutes before we had to do something else, so we just played No Thanks. Got in another play of Cascadia. This is going to be for, the gameplay I did this week, which you may have seen already, but I did a gameplay of Cascadia with Shira and Rena. Again, I keep playing that game. I'm something like 9 or 10 games in since it's landed, which is a lot, considering I got it like a month ago. I got in a play of Marrakesh. Marrakesh is going to be one of the Queen Games City Collection that just went up this week. So Marrakesh is going to be the newest one. So they had like 2 games last time. They had reprints of Bruges and Macau. I can't remember what they're called, Hamburg and Amsterdam. And then they have Marrakesh and New York, I want to say. I think are the 2 that went up this week. I can't recall. But Marrakesh is going to be the new one, and New York is a reprint of Rialto. And Marrakesh is really solid. It's a new Stefan Feld games. And I haven't actually, we'll talk about the Kickstarter obviously when I go over it. But my assumption is that, as usual, I assume I'll be critical of the Queen Games Kickstarter pricing. I generally am. But as far as the game goes, Marrakesh was very exciting. I really enjoyed it. There's one particular aspect of the game I didn't love, but there's a lot going on in terms of intermingling parts. You get a lot done. You want to get more done. That's how I like a game. I want a game to both make me feel like I got a chunk done while feeling like I didn't get to explore everything. Generally, the target number I have is like, I want to get 70% of what you could do. In this game, I probably got like 60%. But it still was very rewarding, and I can't wait to dive in and try to continue to make that engine move. Marrakesh was very solid. Again, one aspect I didn't like, which is that there's like basically like these there's like 11 different sections on your board, and most of them are going to be some form or version of tableau building. And then one of them isn't tableau building, which I just thought it felt off to me. I really wanted the whole game to be tableau building. Either way, it's just made that aspect of the game less exciting to dive into. But either way, that's going to be what I played this week. As far as the week in review, the videos on the week, what do we have so far? So, Saturday. So last Saturday we had a video on the legendary dice bags from Draw Labs. That's just basically an overview going through the dice bags. Not a very exciting video because it's basically 15 minutes of me looking at dice bags. I mean, it wasn't exciting for me, I can tell you. I like the dice bags, but like, the dice bags should be like a 4-minute segment. Just 15 minutes of dice bags is less exciting for me personally. Then later that day, we had a, we had a review for Beast. Now that is exciting. Beast is a game that I gave a 4 to 5. I do think it will grow. Very short version of it is, if you watch the review, I gave it a 4 to 5. I'm absolutely adding to my collection. It is my favorite hidden movement game that I have played yet. No, I have not yet played Mind Management. I mind MGMT. I plan on. I've read the rules for it. I just haven't played it yet. But either way, Beast is a game that I really enjoy, and I'll compare it to Mind MGMT at some point, whether final production copies or at some point, I'll figure it out. But where I am right now with it is I did have critiques of the game, or we did have critiques of the game, and those critiques are being addressed to a degree. And it was already very close to being a 5. So right now it's still a 4, but I am optimistic that it will be a 5, depending on how those things play out. I'm not going to re-review it until we get a final review copy, like, down the road. But very exciting. If you like hidden movement, I highly recommend it. And you can knock out a game in 90 minutes. Decent playtime. Overall, I really recommend Beast. Solid game. Then on Sunday I had a video of why I go all in. It's a video I've been planning on doing for a while. It's always these interesting balances when I do these videos, because my channel tends to be like a mix of, here's the things you shouldn't get, and here's why you don't need this, and here's why you don't need to get that. And by the way, let me also unbox this $500 game and tell you why I get all these stuff. It's a weird mix on the channel of those things, because those are the two competing sides of me. I do balance trying to be responsible while wanting all the shiny. And so it's not that I don't get the shiny, it's I have specific, not aspects, I have rules or processes around what I do, where I let my impulse win and where I hold it back. I have all these rules that kind of just let me do things and try to lose as little money along the way. But either way, that was a video talking about why I go all in, even when sometimes I know full well I may or may not experience all the content. But I often have a reason why I'm going all in, despite that. And then on Monday, we had a to back or not to back. Bunch of solid games it was more of there were like only 6 new games, but there were a whole bunch of updates and Kickstarter and board game adjacent. But as far as the new games go, I was really impressed with Stuff of Legend. It was not on my radar, but looking into it it's one of those classic things where I back more games because I'm a content creator. Because what happens is, in the past, Stuff of Legend wouldn't have been on my radar. I wouldn't have looked into it. I would have moved on and not backed it. But it wasn't on my radar now, and then I looked into it, and I was like, now I want you. Trying to be responsible. I'm trying to stay strong. We'll see how it goes. But that's Stuff of Legend. Then we have Tuesday was a review for Paleo. Paleo is delightful. It's a 4 to 5 for me. I think the thing that holds it back from being a 5 is it does have a decent amount of luck in it that can take away from how good the other game otherwise could be. But the story aspect is amazing. The gameplay is evolving and narrative driven. It builds a story without having a single paragraph of text. It is really well done. I really enjoy it. I highly recommend Paleo as a really solid game. Really, really solid game. Then we had on Tuesday, we had a Adventures and Miniature set. Basically, we have a Gigaramo. I can't pronounce the name, I'm sorry. They have basically a miniature set that they're putting out on Kickstarter. Whole bunch of miniatures for a price point similar to what Blacklist Games did with their miniature line. They're doing the same thing, and I basically show you a bunch of the miniatures and go over that. And then later on Tuesday, lastly on Tuesday, we had that gameplay I talked about, the gameplay and review of Cascadia with myself, Rena, and Shira, and going over that. Again, like I said already, I really enjoy Cascadia every single time. The closest scoring game we've ever had of the game was that game. Then on Wednesday was 10 games where the base game isn't enough content. Going back and thinking of the Why I Go All In video, when I was done with that, I was like, I wonder what games, I want to do a video on 10 games that don't have enough content in the base game, at least in my opinion, that you need more expansion content to keep it fresh. And I went over that list, a whole bunch of games in there. Well, you can watch the video, but just to give you an example, like Marvel United, the base game is going to be a good example of a game where the base game, in my opinion, just isn't enough. You need more variability for the experience. And I go through 10 other games, or 9 other games, I guess, going through just different game experiences I think are great games, but I do think you need more than the base to keep it alive, to keep it fresh for you. And I'm not talking about, expansion content that changes mechanics. I'm just talking about extra characters, extra events, extra things that keep the experience fresh. Then on Thursday we had, and this is the first video that I'm not sure if we did have, because again, I'm filming this Monday. On Thursday, I think we had a video of Marvel's Commands, Master of the Universe, Clash for Eternia, all the updates. I'm 90% sure this video goes up Thursday. I'm not 100% sure because ideally I'm filming this video Wednesday night, right before I pack and leave to Origins, and right now it's Monday. So we'll see how that video goes, but hopefully on Thursday there was a video of Clash of Eternia, all the updates. I expect that later on Thursday, after I film the video, they'll announce their final all-in, completely ruining the point of me doing a final update video. But it is what it is. That's the relationship I have with CMON. They wait till I put up my final video, and then they're like, and here you go, everyone. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Clash of Eternia, amazing game, solid game. Also, you definitely, totally, 100% do not need everything for that game. And then on Friday, we had a video upcoming Kickstarters for October. Now Friday's October 1st, but nonetheless, all the upcoming Kickstarters for October, or all the bigger ones, at least the big ones that I know about, lots of fun games. October is going to be another brutal month of backing a lot of fun games. There's Mythwind, there's Paint the Roses, the Pachamama over here. There's Too Many Bones Unbreakable. There's Lords of Hellas, Lords of Ragnarok from Awakened Realms. We have King Hill, which we'll talk about shortly. We have Mega Pulse. We have Power Plants. A lot of solid games that I've had the chance to play, and I have only listed some of them, not even all of them. It's going to be a tough, brutal month again, and that's just what we know about now. As always, things will be updated and released. I usually recommend subscribing to Shelf Clutter. He generally has a lot of the updates in terms of keeping you informed and all of that. But yeah, lots of stuff coming. It is brutal. But either way, and then today we have, again, this is probably, because I haven't filmed it yet, but we probably have a review for Drop Drive going up today, as well as and this one I have filmed, Realistic Resources. Realistic Resources is a campaign from Top Shelf Gamer. From Top Shelf Gamer, they have a Kickstarter for Realistic Resources that I believe went up yesterday, so October 1st, and I have basically a coverage of the various Realistic Resources going up later today. And then, as far as next week I hope to have, coverage of Mythwind that I already told you about. I hope to have a video covering Mythwind. That Kickstarter is going to be going up next week, and I'd like to have my video up before the Kickstarter goes up. And then we have 10 games that will never leave my collection. That's a video that people have asked for in the past. What are some games that will never leave? And first of all, no, it's not the same as my top 10 games of all time. There's a different criteria I go through. I talk about it in the video, but what I'm looking at when I say you will never leave the collection. So that's number one. Number two, it's not a guarantee. There are no guarantees. It's not safe. Nothing's ever safe. It's just what I think is less likely to ever leave. It should really, a more accurate title would be the 10 games I think are the least likely to ever leave my collection. But that's just a longer and less fun title. If I give you a hard statement, it sounds better, even if it's not entirely true. Either way, that is going to be that, which brings us to the games on the table. Games on the table, what do we have here? So we have 6 games, because I got a whole bunch of games. I have 2 days of gaming coming up. I should be able to knock out a few of these. First of all, we have Land vs. Sea, which I already talked about. I forgot to point at it when I talked about it. Land vs. Sea, I hope to play this more. I haven't even played all the game starts off in a basic way, and then you can add more complexity as you play. I have played with the 2nd level of complexity. I have not played with the 3rd yet, and there's a sort of 4th. That's a 3.5. But either way, I will be jumping back. I hope to jump back into that. I would love to jump back into Pachamama at the same time. This is a deduction game of trying to figure out what's going on. Think Search for Planet X, but really well done. Really like this one. Can't wait to dive back into them. We have Magical Friends. Now, these 2 games, Magical Friends and King Hill, are both games that if you watch my upcoming Kickstarters, then you already know I'm worried about these games not funding. Both these games do not have a lot of people following the games. They don't. They just don't have a ton of people following it. I'm worried they won't fund. But I really want them to fund because they're both very good games, and I hope to dive into them this week as well. So yeah, if you're, I'll throw down pre-launch pages, Kickstarter pages for you to follow if you want. You don't have to back them just to make me happy. You don't, but I would really like to see these games fun because I think they are solid games that people will enjoy. We have Anno 1800. This is a great game. I would love to table this one this weekend. I have already played it, only played it on TTS, which is just by far not the best way to play this game. But I finally got a physical copy, and I'm looking forward to diving into this one. Really enjoy it. Martin Wallace, amazing game designer. I have a bunch of his games. Like Stefan Feld, Martin Wallace is a game designer who I always like his games. The only question is, how much do I like his games? And this one's up there. And then we have Bonfire. Speaking of Stefan Feld, I just played Marrakesh from Stefan Feld. That was the newest, most recent Stefan Feld game I played. And then we have Bonfire, which I read the rules for, finally, and would love to dive into. Looks cool. Looks like a fun little system. Like all Stefan Feld games, just about doing everything, and doing everything as well as possible in ways that cross paths as nicely as they possibly can. In any case, I am off to go play a game of Magical Friends right now. In 2 minutes, I am scheduled to play a gameplay of Magical Friends again, so we'll be going ahead and going into that. But in any case, until next time, and as always, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you have an amazing week. I hope you have, again, I'm filming this Monday, so I have a whole week ahead of me. Your week's over already, so I'm in the timeline. I'm like 6 days ahead of you, 5 days ahead of you. It's very cool. But as always, have a good one.